A tiny raspberry fish hides in the obscurity, eating algae. Wandering 6 provinces, wild and free, destiny has led me to your door, and now I love you evermore. The image of the raspberry fish, known locally as Ka Long Tong, has always evoked unforgettable memories. For those who grew up in the land of waterways, raspberry is a small fish with a silvery white body. These fish typically live in schools. There are many ways to catch raspberry fish, such as fishing rods, setting nets, fishing trap cages, lift nets, casting nets. On rivers, the most common method is setting nets. The gentle flowing river has brought an abundance of fish and shrimp, including the raspberry. While not a fancy species, it carries the entire affection of the river homeland. Raspberry has mild, sweet flesh and can be prepared in many delicious ways. Previously, when rivers in the Mekong Delta were teeming with fish and shrimp, this was considered as a fish for poor families. Nowadays, raspberry has become a specialty because of its characteristic of living in the clean, freshwater environment. It's just like the saying, a tiny raspberry fish hides in the obscurity, eating algae. Mekong Delta is a land of rivers and waterways, so the raspberry fish is closely tied to the lives of people in this region. I remember when I was young, people would often go fishing with nets on the rivers. In the evenings, they'd sell their catch. My mom would often buy the raspberry mixed with some white fish. She'd make a dish of dry braised fish. We'd eat the dry braised fish with soup made from mixed garden greens or with boiled greens picked from around our house. Sometimes we'd have it with raw vegetables, cucumber, or green bananas. In general, it pairs well with many different vegetables. Raspberry fish, whether big or small, tastes good depending on how it's prepared. For example, if you're frying it, use the bigger fish. But for the dry braised fish, the smaller ones work better as they absorb the flavors more easily. The whole fish, bones and all, can be eaten. It is delicious. Raspberry can be prepared in many ways, but the best dish is raspberry braised with black pepper in a clay pot with pork greaves. The ingredients for this dish include raspberry fish, pork greaves, bird's eye chilies, garlic, green onions, shallots, fish sauce, and common seasonings like sugar, salt, seasoning powder, ground black pepper, and chili sauce. To prepare, remove the head, tail, and guts of the raspberry fish. Wash it clean with water and drain. Peel and finely chop the shallots and garlic, along with the bird's eye chilies. When I make the dry braised fish with black pepper, I think all the women in the countryside make this dish very deliciously. It depends on the taste preference of one's family. For example, I often imitate my mother's old recipe, while also adding my own creative touch. Nowadays, cooking has become a bit more sophisticated. In the past, we'd just add a few seasonings, a little MSG, some pork greaves, and salt, and it was already delicious. Now we use more varied seasonings, making sure to include enough pepper and herbs. For instance, I make a marinade sauce. That includes green onion roots, shallots, chili, black pepper, a little garlic. I don't like to use too much garlic in the marinade. And the seasonings I commonly use, like sugar, MSG, stock powder, fish sauce, and salt. I prefer to use rock salt. Chop the pork fat into moderately sized cubes. Put the fat cubes in a clay pot and render it over medium heat until them turn golden. Then add the marinated raspberry fish to braise together for the best flavor. Avoid stirring the fish, as this can break up the flesh. Just let the fish simmer slowly on the stove until the seasonings penetrate and the flesh firms up. Braising the fish in a clay pot is the traditional way. The fish curls up, absorbing the savory seasonings. Add a few bird's eye chilies, and it becomes a specialty of the river region. To make it taste good, add a lot of sugar. The sugar gives it a syrupy consistency. That makes it delicious. But when you use a lot of sugar, you also need to increase the other seasonings to balance it out. It won't taste good if you just make it sweet. When you're braising and you see it forming strings, that's when people love to eat it. It's especially delicious with crispy rice. The pot of braised raspberry has an eye-catching golden color. The fish flesh is firm, slightly spicy, and full of rich flavors. To accompany the braised fish, pick some mixed greens from the garden and cook them with dried shrimp for an instant soup. That completes a meal full of hometown flavors, nurtured by soft showers. The garden vegetables flourish in vibrant hues of green, offering a feast for the eyes. There's no fixed recipe for the mixed green soup. This dish varies by season and personal taste, but it's very easy to make. It's usually cooked with dried shrimps, river tiny shrimps, or clams. Bring water to a boil. Add some crushed garlic. Then add the freshly picked and washed mixed greens. Once the soup comes to boil up, season with a little salt and MSG for a refreshing pot of the mixed greens soup. Besides the richly flavored braised raspberry, we can't forget about fried raspberry. Depending on personal preferences, it can be fried fresh or battered, and both are incredibly delicious. The secret to perfectly fried fish is to marinate it thoroughly with seasonings, then drop it into hot oil. Marinate the fish in a mixture of garlic, pepper, fish sauce, and MSG to make it slightly tasty. Don't need put a lot of seasonings. Now there's crispy frying batter available. Use a ratio of 2 or 3 parts fish to 1 part batter, just to give it a light coating. This preserves the natural flavor of the fish, keeping the flesh sweet and delicious. It can be dipped in various sauces, like chili sauce, soy sauce, or tangy fish sauce, depending on individual preferences. Each tiny fish is fried to an even golden color, crispy on the outside, with the inside permeated by rich, aromatic seasonings that fill the kitchen. Raspberry, a name that sounds simple and rustic, but unforgettable for many people, especially those who grew up in the riverine areas. Those meals with clay pots of the pepper-braised raspberry and plates of the mixed greens picked from the backyard aren't just cozy family dinners. They also reflect the traditional image of diligent and skilled housewives